Next, we turn to Dr. Judith Favell, CEO of AdvoServe, a multi-state network of treatment programs for children and adults with developmental challenges. Dr. Favell received her bachelor's degree in psychology from Wesleyan University and her PhD from the University of Kansas, out my way. Dr. Favell, welcome to the committee. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm also Executive Director of the Celeste Foundation and a member of the Professional Advisory Board for the Autism Society of America. During my nearly 40 years career as a behavior analyst and as a psychologist, I have devoted myself to the field of autism and developmental disabilities. Now, during this period, I've specialized in the treatment of behavior problems such as self-injury and aggression that is sometimes associated with these disorders. And it is on the delivery of such treatment services that I'm focusing my comments today. While research on the cause and course of autism continues, while the incidence and prevalence is tracked, while basic research on the underlying mechanisms of the disorder is conducted, we cannot lose sight, as just been said, of the 1.5 million children and adults today living with autism who need help today. Today they are seeking services that will allow them to gain the skills and resolve the behavioral challenges that will enable them to live and enjoy the fullest life possible. Fortunately, across the last years, major advancements have been made in the development of educational and behavioral strategies to teach these skills and to treat these problems. These methods have been tested across literally decades of scientific research and confirm that children and adults with autism can indeed be helped in meaningful and substantial ways. They can learn to communicate. They can learn to care for themselves. They can achieve academic and job goals. They can reciprocate love with friends and family. Likewise, people experiencing autism need not engage in behavior problems that hurt themselves or harm others. In short, effective treatment and teaching methods designed to help people with autism, notably those based on learning theory and applied behavior analysis, are available today and each day are becoming more effective with continued research. So this picture is a decidedly optimistic one. However, effective methods of instruction and behavioral treatment are clearly not enough. To impact the lives of people with autism, an equally important issue must be addressed, and that is how to actually make these services available to people who need them. There exists not just a gap, but a chasm between what we know and what consumers actually receive. For example, we know, as has been said, that to be optimally effective, services should begin as early in a child's life as possible and be intensive, that is, encompass as many hours as possible. And yet, as we hear, families lose precious months, years, waiting for services, and then too often must settle for a fraction of what their child needs. Too often, then, those very services are not available when and where they are actually needed, at bedtime, during meals, or in the midst of the meltdown during the weekend. Needs of people with autism do not conveniently conform to professional appointments or clinic hours. Support may be needed any time, day or night. Further, we know that to be effective and to produce positive outcomes, services need to be provided by qualified caregivers. And yet, despite widespread training of families and service personnel, despite extensive recruitment of professionals to the field of autism, there remains a serious shortfall of qualified professionals to guide the treatment process. Thus, though we know a great deal about how to help, we must increase the accessibility and availability of these services to ensure that people with autism actually receive that help. If we're truly to ensure that services are available early, in sufficient amounts, and targeted when and where needed, traditional solutions, for example, increasing training of professionals, though important, is simply not sufficient. To meet the challenge, new service models must be developed. Our own work at the Celeste Foundation provides an example of possible new approaches to improving services, both their availability and potentially their cost-effectiveness. From support from the Department of Education and the states within which we conducted this project, we recently completed a demonstration project investigating the use of telehealth systems to provide professional services directly into homes. Now, in this model, after a brief period of on-site training, families were linked to professionals via an interactive video system that enabled live, real-time teaching, consultation, and support directly into the home when and where it was needed. Through this telehealth model, families received help teaching their child, coping with their challenges from professionals who might be located hundreds, even thousands of miles away, ensuring rapid and responsive assistance regardless of the distance involved. This demonstration, utilizing technology developed by the Cnow organization, proved to be an extremely effective and reliable vehicle for aiding families with children with autism. Children learned and maintained a wide array of skills, from communication to toilet training to eating green beans. Parents reported relief from stress and an improvement of quality of life as a function of having support available to them on an ongoing basis. And families and professionals alike affirmed the effectiveness of this method of facilitating services and its ease of use. The following brief news feature provides a graphic picture of the benefits and the model involved of using telehealth systems for service delivery, and it features Josh Cobb and his family, who's with us today.
Why would you have hope?
What appears to be a typical snack time is actually a momentous occasion for Noah Cobbs.
He sits at the table now every day for breakfast,
Whoever's
lunch,
here for dinner
and
sits
dinner.
at the table. No, I need help. Noah is autistic, and many of the skills children his age take for granted, like talking and eating, are daily challenges for this vibrant 6-year-old and his parents.
Before, I felt as a parent like a failure.
Absolutely.
I wasn't helping my child.
Then the Cobbs discovered the Celeste Foundation. This Florida-based group specializes in early intervention for autistic children using innovative video technology.
Through intervening early and often with a young child and teaching parents and caregivers and persons in their lives how to best cope with the challenges and the behaviors that occur.
A lot of the kids will interact with us just as if we were there.
Hi! Each day begins with a video visit from the Celeste specialist who observe and guide the Cobbs through speech and behavior strategies with Noah. Good job, give me 5. After just 3 months in the program, Noah's progress is astounding.
Stop!
His language has skyrocketed.
And now Noah's sitting at the dinner table for entire meals, something parents Josh and Tina never thought possible.
He went from having a screaming match to get him to sit for 2 minutes. He sits for 20 minutes now.
Yes? The biggest accomplishment? Potty training.
And he told me for the first time he had to go potty. For me, that was like the biggest thing. And I got on the phone and I called Josh and I said, "You'll never guess what Noah did."
There.
Celeste professionals say results like these are possible thanks to their unique approach.
Particularly for those families who can't get services delivered to them. Families who live in rural areas or where services just aren't afforded to them.
When you're able to do it in your home when it's most needed and apply it when it makes the most sense, kids tend to learn much faster then, and certainly parents have more opportunity to practice their strategies too.
For the Cobbs, having professionals in their home on a daily basis has given them a newfound hope.
Now I really feel that I'm helping him, and he's benefiting from my interaction with him, and he's actually enjoying it.
The Celeste program is still in its research phase, but Project Director Luke Baker says the service may be available to the public within a year. If you'd like to learn more about autism or the services provided by the Celeste Foundation, log on to our website at kmag14.com and look under the Health Watch links. That's the Health Watch report. Now back to you.
Work such as this by the Celeste Foundation, demonstrating the efficiency and effectiveness of utilizing telehealth to facilitate services, it exemplifies the type of innovative approach that we must pursue if we are truly going to meet the ever-increasing needs of children and adults and their families with autism, bridging that chasm between knowledge and practice, moving services from the paper to the people. I ask all in a position of influence, certainly including the distinguished members of this committee, to support efforts to find innovative methods of service delivery for all of those on the spectrum, including my grandson Alex, so that they may receive the very best we have to offer and lead the brightest future possible. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. As I said in my opening statement, I hear two pleas from families with autistic children. One, find a cure, but help us now. And so many people that they just don't have the ability to have someone come visit them every day to tell them what to do. I'll have more questions about that later, but I just thought that's really the first time I've seen that clip. I'd heard about it. Since it did take place in Iowa. I'd heard about it. And so I'll have more to ask you about. This is where I'm going to focus on Dr. Favell. I am so intrigued by what you're doing. As many families tell me, or people I've talked to with autistic children, when they go to the doctor's office or when they see a behaviorist or a psychologist, maybe the child's not exhibiting anything at that time. When they need help is at home when things go all to heck, all right? And there's no one there. And so that's why I'm intrigued by what you're doing. Enlighten me a little bit more about how many families could a trained psychologist, behaviorist, someone who is trained and knows how to deal with children with autism, how many could they handle on some kind of a system like this? I mean, on a 24-hour-a-day basis. I mean, I'm trying to figure out, could one handle 3 families or 2 or 5? I just don't know.
Mr. Chairman, it's an excellent question, and the answer is just evolving. But, for example, we did, as part of our work with the Celeste Foundation, one demonstration that calculated that if a professional, like a behavior specialist, was to provide in-home services, they might be able to visit 2 families a day, given travel distances, given missed appointments, given inclement weather, all the vagaries of the logistics of supplying services. Perhaps they could see 2 to 3 families a day. And of course, again, in more rural areas, that number decreases. On the other hand, if you have a behavior specialist or a behavior analyst who is working with this interactive video kind of capacity, you could see potentially 20 families a day. Now, this kind of remote, this telehealth, does not replace face-to-face intervention and support, but it can augment it and expand exponentially the number of families that can be touched a day.
As I understand it, in the beginning, you do have face-to-face involvement with the families. Is that correct?
Yes, in the model that we tested in our demonstration project, they spent, the families, such as Josh Cobb's family, spent a week on site developing priorities and learning basic strategies of intervention and teaching. And then they went home with their interactive video system, and then that began the process of the interactive consultation, support, and training. And it started with about 10 to 14 hours a week of interactive video support. It's a couple of hours a day. We think actually, and the families tell us, it might be able to be somewhat less. It all is individualized depending on the needs of the child. Then it was after 3 weeks reduced to about 5 to 7 hours a week, and then 3 to 6 hours a week.
I see.
So there's yet to be worked out the formula for exactly the parameters of what is needed, and it will always be individualized, just as the IEP and the IHP requires. But the intuitive reasoning behind having one professional who now is able to touch lives through this remote medium is quite clear.
What more do we need to do to test this out?
Well, I think we need to bring it, as we say, to scale. We need to test fully the economics of it. We need to test it across broader bands, including some other disabilities. And may I say also, this kind of innovation should not be restricted to children alone. We can't forget the many, many thousands of people who are adolescents and adults who are also living with autism. So we have further to test there. But I think probably the single most important element in bringing this to scale, as I say, is to develop the policies behind reimbursement strategies. If I, as a psychologist and a behavior analyst, can be reimbursed for providing services face-to-face in a home, then I should presumably also be allowed to be reimbursed for providing comparable services now over remote interactive video. And yet, easily half the states do not allow for that kind of reimbursement through Medicaid. So, and then those states that do allow it, there's wide discrepancy in what they reimburse. Yes, sir.
Let me ask Ms. Colson, if you'd had something like this available to you, would that have helped you?
Yes, it would have helped me a lot, not only because most parents with children with autism work full-time and are probably hourly wage workers, and so getting off to run home for the times you can do early intervention is tough, but also because then the therapist could see, as Dr. Favell says, the bad time of night,
Yes.
when the behaviors of autism, it just gets harder to be a kid with autism.
I have a note here. I'm holding my hand. It says that Josh Cobb is here, the father of Noah Cobb, who was in that news clip. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh. Josh, welcome to the committee. I should have pulled up a chair for you and asked you a question. In fact, yeah, come up here, sit down. I didn't even know you were here.
Thank you.
Now, the recorder's going to want to know your name.
It's Josh, last name is Cobb, C-O-B-B-S, and I am not prepared, but I'll do my best.
I wasn't prepared to have you here either. But I just want to know, now I saw that little clip, obviously, TV wants to get in due respect to Mr. Wright, TV tries to get it in a very short clip.
Sure.
Tell me what this has meant. I mean, just tell me, give me a little flavor of what this has meant for you and your wife and your son on this. Again, the availability of it, that you can do this during the day, right? On weekends too? I don't know. Can you
Sure.
do this weekends?
We actually had services initially 7 days a week, 2 calls, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. And we structured them around when we were struggling, such as sitting at the dinner table or breakfast table, which was very helpful. The doctors got to see Noah in his true element, so he wasn't acting up because there was a worker in the class or in our home, and he wasn't putting on stage, if you will. So he was in his natural surroundings, which was very helpful for us because that's where the behavior was happening. So that was very important. One thing I'd like to clarify, it's not just important for our immediate family, but also his grandparents and aunts and uncles who are affected by autism as well, they were able to come in and help. And once Tina and I were trained adequately through the Celeste Foundation and our immediate family, we then had the tools to go out
Yeah.
and help others. So
Now, I'm told, I'll just throw this question to anyone, I'm told that many times what might be the normal reaction of a parent to a behavioral problem of a child, that if that child is autistic, it may in fact exacerbate the problem and make it worse. And so you have to have other approaches.
absolutely.
I'm not a behavioral scientist or anything like that. I've just been told that.
Yeah.
And so, yes.
We like to say that children with autism don't have osmosis, as many of us do. And so a lot of speech therapies and other therapies, you can say, are talk. And so when you talk at a child or even soothe them with your voice, you're changing the environment, and that may make them, there's a term called sensory violation. It may sort of freak them out a little bit. When, for example, I was trying to comfort Camden, and I would stroke him, well, that just makes him feel completely out of his element. And so there are things a mother does naturally that sometimes we have to alter because children with autism like deep pressure, and that grounds them, or vestibular inputs.
So something like a telehealth thing could be instructive in that, where you could actually talk to someone and say, don't do this or do this.
Right.
Absolutely.
Has that happened to you?
Excuse me, absolutely. I do want to point out the actual day that the TV station was there was Noah's worst day. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. He ran outside. He was crying. He was kicking. I was thinking to myself, we're failing right now as parents with TV reporters there and a few other people. And through the project from Celeste, they actually right there coached us through the moment. And it took about 40 minutes to get Noah reeled back in, to get him back into the house and to get him calmed down. But wow, what a great feeling. That was a true test for us, is we can make that happen with the right help and coaching.